Upon further review, we've checked the Dolphins' offensive game tape from week 1 against Jacksonville. I have a lot of observations and my player grades coming your way next here today on Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami on Substack, the NFL draft lead over on the 33rd team. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On your first stop and destination every day, because it is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it here on the Locked On Network. I finished watching the coach's film. Important disclaimer. I am not putting the coach's film on here because as a member of the Tegna Media family, there's more hoops, loops, things that we have to jump through for broadcasting rights of NFL game tape. But please know, over on Touchdown Miami on Substack, I have a 30-minute collection of clips from the game offensively, including some of the game, the plays that we're going to be talking about here. So one thing that I'm doing this year that is a little different is I am grading. We did it in the preseason. We did a dry run. I liked it. We're going to do it for the regular season. I graded all the players on all the plays. So you pull up, you would watch it on NFL Pro with your NFL.com subscription, and you can get the film room and you can put the filters on, or you can just watch the plays as they go through, and you watch each player and watch them execute their assignment. And I'm borrowing from Pro Football Focus. They grade their plays on a -2 to +2 scale versus expectation. And then Pro Football Focus does a bunch of other stuff with the raw data that they get. I'm just getting the raw data because I just want to know on a per play basis, how often and how highly above or below expectation are you performing? And what I can tell you is this. The Dolphins had a number of impressive offensive performances in spite of the limitations that we saw with the offensive game plan and the execution of it. And the number one takeaway that I had was you were one player assignment on at least 2 plays away from having 2 more 50-plus yard touchdowns in this game. Devon Achane's first third down perimeter screen. And I know the perimeter screens drove everybody nuts. I'll talk about it in just a second. Devon Achane gets that ball. He's got a convoy out in front of him. The player who forces him to stop when he gets out into the open field is the backside safety in a 2-high shell who runs all the way across the formation. To get over top of him, Achane puts a move on and makes him miss, but he has to stop himself and slow himself down. He gets caught from behind by Ronald Darby. Jonnu Smith was the number 3 eligible on the backside away from the perimeter screen. He had inside leverage on that backside safety. And he kind of works through the middle of the field, but he ain't hustling like I know Jonnu Smith's capable of hustling. And guess what? If Jonnu Smith had hustled the way that I know that Jonnu Smith is capable of hustling and gets his body onto that backside safety before he gets all the way over top of Achane outside the numbers to the opposite side of the field, when Achane breaks through the convoy, he's in a foot race against nobody. He's going to walk in for a touchdown. It would have been a 70-plus yard walk-in touchdown. Instead, the Dolphins going to turn the ball over on downs on that possession near midfield, all because Jonnu Smith didn't hustle as a backside blocker. Plays like that, there's instances of that all over the film. There's Teron Armstead. He's got a defensive end that crashes down hard across his face, but the Dolphins are doing power pass where they pull the left guard and have him help block on the end of the line of scrimmage on the other side of the center. So Teron gets a guy crashing through his gap. He's got Aaron Brewer who has to pass off the nose tackle and then come catch that player in the B gap. So Teron's got to deliver him to him. And as Jacksonville does that, the linebacker from depth, stacked behind the defensive end who crashes down in the B gap, comes on a blitz. Alec Ingold sees it late because he's expecting to help in the B gap. And now all of a sudden, Teron's in there delivering the defensive end to the center. So now Alec says, oh, they came behind with a linebacker pressure. I got to get out here and pick up Devin Lloyd. Well, he doesn't get out there because he's looking to help inside and process is late that the linebacker came. What play is this? This is the missed throw from Tua to Tyreek Hill on the long shot where he fakes the over and then bends out to the corner. Early in the game where Tua overthrows him and everybody says, that would have been a nice one to have. That would have been a 50-plus yard touchdown. But Tua now has Devin Lloyd bearing on him, and he has to throw and transition into turning away from the hit and protecting himself, which I would much rather have a missed throw than a hurt quarterback. But those two plays, you're a split-second process from your fullback in protection, and you're a lick of effort better on the backside against a backside safety from having an additional two 50-plus yard plays and scoring plays in this game. Margins, it's close. Who are the top performers? Jeff Wilson only had a handful of carries, but what he did with his carries, yards after contact, getting downhill, injecting some life into the running game, had 5 carries for 26 yards. Very consistent, net positive performer. Now, it was singles and doubles. It wasn't triples and home runs, to put the baseball analogy on it. But that package with Jeff Wilson worked, and it worked well. And it worked well with consistency, which is something none of the other elements of the running game other than the fullback dive brought to the table. Your best every down player that I had graded was Jalen Waddle on a per-play basis. Reps where he is up at the line of scrimmage, recognizes the route that he's running versus getting press leverage. He's trying to hand signal to Tua behind his back. Tua doesn't get it. They carry out a rollout that goes the other way. They go to the huddle. They come out. They catch the same coverage. They run the exact same route. He gets a critical 3rd and 8 conversion on an out route. And this is Jalen Waddle's superpower. You can go look on my timeline on X. I have a film clip from last year against the Jets doing this exact same thing. He's got Sauce Gardner in coverage. And he's got press, outside leverage for the corner. Waddle's running an out against outside leverage with press. About a hard assignment as you can catch, because the guy's leverage where you want to go, you're going to have to go through his body to get out of the break. And just like he did against Sauce Gardner, he did to Ronald Darby, and he did it to Ronald Darby twice on 2 consecutive plays. Inside stem, inside release, burst, get up the field, use your speed, which is his superpower, run all the way over the top of him. Wide open. Tearing him a new one. He did it again and again and again and again and again. Waddle blocked. He was, when the Dolphins went in 22 personnel and went heavy with 2 tight ends and a fullback and said, all right, we're going to run some power. We're going to run downhill. Waddle's out there blocking. But it's the receiving game stuff for him. The tough catching coverage on the tipped ball, the explosive 60-plus yard play that he's running over top of the first read, and Tua pumps it and opens it up. A lot of good stuff from Jalen Waddle. I thought he was a very consistent performer and a consistent performer at a high level in this game. Same could be said for Devon Achane. Played less snaps, about 15 less snaps than Jalen Waddle did. But I thought maybe the only one Achane would want back was he had a run where Trayvon Walker kind of logs the run with a puller and ends up on an inside gap, and Achane bounces it outside, where if he would have bounced it back inside, the line that was blocking down actually got pretty good push. Created some good movement. There could have been an opportunity if he stutters and kicks inside instead of outside. He could have had a nice chunk run. We're going to talk about the offensive game plan a little bit more, the high performers. The good news is that there were only a handful of individual player performances that did not log net across the entirety of the game, at least 2 expectation performances. We're going to look at some more of those guys. We're going to look at the game plan. That's next here on this episode of Locked On Dolphins. Looking back at Dolphins' win over Jacksonville from Sunday. Stick with us. Guys, when you leave the house, it's phone, wallet, keys. How's my hair look? But if you're experiencing hair loss, you may not be so confident when you step outside the door. It's time to get that confidence back and restore your hair with Hims. Hims provides access to a range of hair loss treatments that work, all from the comfort of your couch. Hims makes treating hair loss simple with doctor-trusted treatment options and clinically proven ingredients like finasteride and minoxidil that can regrow hair in as little as 3 to 6 months. They offer personalized chewables, oral spray, and serum and treatment options so you can find what works best for you. The process is simple. It is 100% online. Just answer a few questions and a medical provider will determine if treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your treatment is sent directly to your door. I am a consumer of this. I look back at pictures of me from 5-6 years ago, and I had this really dumb, like high buzz that I gave myself with what was left on the top. So I read the YouTube comments. I see frequently all the comments about the coiffed and the hair, but I enjoy having it back, and hair treatment helped me get that back. So if you are in the shoes that I was in, start your free online visit today at hims.com/LockedOnNFL. That's HIMS.com/LockedOnNFL for your personalized hair treatment options. HIMS.com/LockedOnNFL. Results vary based on studies of topical and oral minoxidil. Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information. I think the important thing to remember about the game plan, I do think I view, and I said this on Joe Rowe's show this morning on WQAM. I look at the screen game that Miami implemented, and the Jaguars fans will clown on Twitter about the passing chart with all the throws at the line of scrimmage. Instead of clowning the opposing team, how about you take it as a compliment for the challenges that your defense presented to the Dolphins? I look at the trio of Trayvon Walker, Joshua Hines-Allen, and Eric Armstead. That is one of the most impressive 1-3 defensive front challenges that you have to solve this season. It's, okay, how do we negotiate this player? Well, we can't do X and Y because player Z is on the other side. And we can't do A and B because not only do you have X and Y, but you have player F who's in the middle, right? I can't just send extra attention to Hines-Allen because we have Trayvon Walker on the other side. And I can't go heavy and split the backs and go 7-man protection and put a fullback out here and a fullback out there because now you got Eric Armstead potentially in one-on-one situations against your interior offensive line. How do you slow it down? On top of that, this was a team that was renowned for its pressure tendencies with Ryan Nielsen in a new scheme with new personnel and no body of work how to understand how they were going to use it. They gave themselves pressure answers. They gave themselves alleviations to a really talented component of Jacksonville's defense by forcing those players to have to stop and retrace and stop and work their way back to the perimeter. We're going to get upfield. Oh, it's 3rd and long. Let's go. It's 3rd and 13. Oh, dang, they ran another perimeter screen. I got to go all the way out here again. And not only run to the perimeter, I got to run 20 yards upfield. At some point, start slowing you down. And that's exactly what it did. And the Dolphins, as a result of this game we're on, we talked about Jeff Wilson, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane. My next 2 top highest graded performers were Austin Jackson and Teron Armstead. This was from an opportunity standpoint to leave those guys on some islands and handle their assignments. Yes, Austin Jackson gave up the sack to Trayvon Walker. It was an excellent bull rush, and it's not the only time Trayvon Walker has bulled an offensive tackle. He does it about every week at this point. He's the number 1 overall pick for a reason. He's a freak athletically, super heavy hands, and very twitched up and powerful. But more often than not, because of how they handled the early portions of the game with the jab, the jab, the jab, the jab. You can't catch me, jab, the jab, the jab. Now all of a sudden, all right, we're going to throw a cross. But you're going to treat it like another perimeter screen, and you're not firing off the ball with the intent that you're capable of. And it allowed the offensive tackles a lot of success in the opportunities when they were left on islands. I loved it. You know, was it a little frustrating at times? Yeah. But as far as solving the riddles of an opposing defense with no body of work to understand what they were going to do and having pressure answers, and then to come out and say, okay, we're into the second half a little bit. We kind of have a feeling for what you're doing. Now we're going to throw some haymakers. We're going to eat your punches like Rocky Balboa and play very defensive and then we'll get out. And once we've processed who you are as a defense a little bit more. And it put them in positions to be successful. The next tier of scorers offensively, Tyreek Hill, Tua Tagovailoa, Alec Ingold, Aaron Brewer. That's kind of the next batch of players that all scored very well. They didn't necessarily score upper echelon of scores within this game for Dolphins performances, and I can't wait till we're a month into the season. I have a bigger body of work. But I thought all of these players played good games. I thought Aaron Brewer, the athletic elements of his game popped in a massive way. What he was able to do in screen game, getting out into space, but also picking up peelers on the backside to make sure if I got to throw a now to Devon Achane and the defensive tackle to the play side is trying to scrape out there and chase it out, and he has to cut back inside, and I'm Brewer, I can get on top of those guys in a hurry. And then when the Dolphins flipped the switch late in the game, when the Dolphins said, okay, we're going to come out in 22 personnel and we're going to run power and we're going to run at you. We're going to run downhill. We're going to pull guards and we're going to have tight ends. And we're going to double team you and we're going to climb up the linebackers and we're going to create push. And we got our most physical back running behind it with a fullback. All that clicks into place. And I thought Brewer handled Devon Hamilton in one-on-one situations quite well. He threw Hamilton out the club towards the end of the game in a one-on-one situation. I thought Alec Ingold, from a blocking perspective, made a number of critical blocks. Julian Hill was not mentioned, but he was another net positive performer for what he did as a blocker. I think this is the team's starting tight end. And I don't think this was just circumstances. He ends up outsnapping Durham Smythe pretty significantly from a volume perspective. Now, I thought Durham redeemed himself. He actually came out as a net positive player, despite the drops. Now, I don't weigh passing reps and targets, the value of that over blocks. I'm just looking at, on this play, yes or no, did you perform to, at, or above, or below expectation? The drops for Durham were frustrating. I actually thought the second one, when they were down kind of in scoring territory, Tua made that throw a little harder than it needed to be. But nevertheless, a couple of drops for Durham Smythe, very frustrating. But what he did down the stretch as a blocker, particularly in the core and in the box when they line him up in line and he's climbing up and working on and getting on safeties and linebackers and riding those guys through and creating secondary lanes, it was good. It was good. But who are you looking for more from next time through? There's a couple names we haven't mentioned. We'll talk about them next here on this episode of Locked On Dolphins. Make sure that you stick with us. You've heard us talk plenty about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, but we have something a little different for you now through September 22nd. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a free 3-week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you're able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon game out of market. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. So visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. Guys, I'm looking for more from next week. And when I say this next week, I mean in 2 days. Because the Dolphins play at home against the Bills on Thursday night. Robert Jones was sufficient. You saw some flashes. You saw some flashes of power at the point of attack. You saw some flashes in pass protection. I thought Liam Eichenberg comfortably outplayed Robert Jones. And I think Robert has the capability with his build and his frame and his power to have that not be the case. Liam was, by the slimmest of margins, an above expectation performer. So adequate starting offensive guard, and that's without weighting the positional value of playing the position. Robert Jones came up short of that. Some missed assignments. The holding penalties were brutal issues for him. I think if you take the holding penalties off the board, he's much closer from a grading perspective, for sure. I can tell you that math across 72 snaps and what he got deducted for the holding penalties, especially those wiping off big plays on the ground. Didn't need to happen. The second one was exceptionally bad. He wins first placement. He uses heavy hands to turn the defender out of the gap. He's got him in a position where he can try and snatch him. He tries to snatch him, but he doesn't let go, and he tries to push him down into the ground, and then he keeps his footing, and then he tries to run through the block, and Rob doesn't let him go, but Raheem's already outside of it by 5 yards. It's like, brother, it's outside zone. Just let him go. Let him go. The other player, and I don't think it's a coincidence that this player's usage faded down the stretch. But the other player who I thought just really struggled was Braxton Berrios, which shouldn't be a huge surprise given the Dolphins' efforts to upgrade the wide receiver room. Braxton played 25 snaps, and 8 of them came in the second half. They faded Braxton Berrios down the stretch. And Braxton really struggled to create any level of separation. The targets when he's running the fade down the left sideline and Tua lays it out there, was it a perfectly placed ball? No. Did Braxton have any juice at all to accelerate and run underneath of it? Also no. So the 11 personnel package for Miami with what they had at their disposal, and that player being Braxton Berrios, I don't think it's a coincidence that you got out of halftime and they made some adjustments. But he scored from a raw game grade, like per game net pluses and minuses. He scored equal to Robert Jones, and he played about 1/3 of the snaps. So that's a player for me that either you have to come up with some different answers for, and I think they did in the second half, and I think the matchup against Buffalo will be a great opportunity to do that, because Buffalo, now it's come out and has been reported they're going to be down Taron Johnson, their standout nickel player, in addition to Matt Milano, in addition to a brand new safety room of starters this year versus last year. I try and run heavy at him. Now, there were things that I would have done in the game plan that didn't look like what Miami did against Jacksonville, but when you see why they chose to do what they do offensively, I get it. I totally get it. I get why they attacked it the way that they did, and they're fortunate enough to have won a game through some tough learning lessons about the little things. Because I think they pushed the right buttons to find some run game against that front. It was nice to find. They needed it down the stretch to be balanced offensively and kind of take control of the game across the final 15 minutes or so. It felt like they really kind of had their finger on the pulse of the game. But then also for them to have those missed opportunities for explosive scores early in the game and to have that not cost you the football game is a nice relief. We have defensive side of the ball coming up a little later today. We also have some groundwork type stuff getting ready for the Buffalo Bills in week 2. So there's a lot of stuff coming your way here on Locked On Dolphins. Make sure you follow on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Make it a great rest of your day. I will be back again later today with another episode as we put the final touches on Dolphins Jags and turn the page and start to prep for Buffalo on Thursday night. I'm Kyle Krabs, and I am out of here. Go Fins.